Hello and welcome to MLM for CEOs. Today, I'd like to spend some time talking to you about doing business in Africa. I've been working in Africa for over 30 years, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I can certainly give you some real insights into what happens in the African continent when doing business, specifically in the multi-level marketing space. So there's currently about 1.2 billion people in Africa. So there's a huge population that you can tap into, a lot of people. And the beauty is that they're basically broken into two segments. On the one side, you've got people who are desperate for opportunity, where you can provide them a means to put food on their table and a roof over their heads. And on the other side, you've got this big emerging middle class, which is coming into their own and is there to be able to consume the products that you have. Now, obviously, you've got to be careful. The products that you put into the market need to resonate with the market. So you need to do your market research. You have to have the right product, the right story, a perfect compensation plan for the space, and then, of course, the right local advice, somebody who can actually point you in the right direction, because this is a minefield, and obviously you need to navigate it without getting blown up, if you know what I mean. It's not for the faint of heart, but I believe it's the next new wave in terms of multi-level marketing. I think this is where the MLM space is going to explode and going to get real traction. And I'm already seeing it here. We're currently busy with a project in South Africa, and it has just taken off like there's no tomorrow. We're signing up thousands of people a month. The business is growing at incredible speeds, and we are going to be pushing that business into Central Africa, into India, and then into the Pacific Rim, and exploring all of those emerging markets. And I believe that there's a real opportunity here for companies with an appetite for this kind of trading, and also with the skills to avoid the traps that are really rife in this industry, and specifically in this continent. So a couple of challenges. Let's start with the big one. How do you get money? There's a real challenge because a lot of people are unbanked. So what happens is, how do you get your money from the client? Now, there's some real innovative solutions. In Central Africa, there's a process called the PESA. Was it called M-Pesa, if I can remember correctly? It's M-P-E-S-A. And what that does is it uses your cell phone to make payment. Now, I can hear you saying, oh, that's normal. You know, I go along with my Apple and my Apple phone, my iPhone, and I tap it and I make payment. Well, it's not like that at all. With your iPhone, when you tap, it takes the money off your credit card. So your credit card is linked to your iPhone, and your iPhone is used as the gateway. That's not how it works at all with M-Pesa. What happens is, I've got $100 worth of airtime, and I want to buy something from you for $10, and I shunt $10 of airtime to you, and the airtime becomes the currency. The companies pay their commission in airtime, the people pay each other in airtime, and the currency is flowing around. So you can use your cell phone to buy anything, but you're not using actual dollars. You're using airtime as a sort of a placeholder for the money. So there's innovative solutions. Another one is in South Africa, we've got companies like Payat. Now, what they do is, when the order gets placed on the system, a barcode gets sent to the IBO or the customer. They then take that barcode into the local retail stores, the big retailers. The retailer scans the barcode, takes the cash from the client, and as soon as they ring up that sale, the APIs fire off a webhook to the system to tell the system, listen, we've received payment. Order is marked as paid, and you can then fulfill on that order. So again, an innovative way in a society where you've got a big part of the population is not banked, and where people are actually not able to pay you with the traditional plastic. They literally are using cash, and there has to be other innovative methods to get the money around. And then, of course, all sorts of currency challenges. You've got 50 odd countries in Africa. Every one of them has got their own currency. Every one of them has got their own exchange controls. You know, moving money around in Africa is a nightmare. And so those are issues where you have to have specialists involved who can help you navigate that particular space. As I mentioned at the beginning, sort of when I headed this thing up, is poverty is a big problem. That obviously is a challenge because you can't sell to poor people, but it's also an opportunity because there's an opportunity to create um, small businesses with these people to help lift them out of poverty. So you got this emerging middle market, this emerging middle class. They are probably not keen to get involved in the MLM space, but this poor sort of segment of the market are looking for opportunities where there's an extremely low barrier to entry. So you've got to be careful about what your starter kits cost, but where they can actually then take a really great product, sell it to the emerging middle class, and generate themselves an income, put a roof over their head and food on their table. So for me, this is one of the areas where MLM really shines. It provides us with an opportunity to give people businesses where the infrastructure of the entire company is behind them, where there's a very low barrier to entry, and where there's a high profit margin that they can generate if they work hard. So it's a case of just making it on the sweat of your brow. I mean, and that's what multi-level marketing is anyway, for me, in any case. One of the challenges is, though, a lot of the people who are working are earning minimum wage. And in a place like South Africa, minimum wage is $250 a month. So you can imagine that a person who's earning $250 a month is definitely looking for a side hustle. So again, there's an entire group of people who are looking to get into the MLM space, who are looking for a side hustle to generate some extra cash, because what they're making from their job is not cutting it. Your products have to be affordable. So you've got to make them affordable. If you pitch them too high, the sale doesn't happen. A company like Tupperware, who's been in South Africa forever, is now basically closing down because the price point is too high to gain traction within the South African market anymore. So they're basically closing down in South Africa and moving out because they can't meet the price point. So you've got to be careful with the product you're bringing in, make sure that it is affordable. You have a problem with churn rate as well, because what happens is a lot of these IBOs will join your business and they look for the low-hanging commission fruit. So the fast start bonuses and the quick cash payouts and all of that kind of stuff, they look for that. And they then go for that. Once they've got the fast start bonuses and the cash payouts, they leave and they're off for the next MLM company. So you have to make sure when you put your MLM business together that you don't have that low-hanging fruit, and that you focus on things like recognition and incentives and the social side of it as much as the money and the product. So you've got a great product, you've got a good compensation plan, but then you do excellent recognition and incentives, and you have this big social vibe where these people are part of something amazing, and that's the way you keep them and stop that churn. But it is a challenge that you have to really account for and manage for, because it's going to happen for sure. There's other online challenges. The cost of data is exorbitant, specifically in South Africa, but throughout Africa, it's an area where the people are being quite badly stung. And then, of course, there's a lack of ubiquity in terms of access. So you can't get access to data just anywhere you are. Now, if a person's only earning $250 a month, they're very loath to go and spend some of that on data. So that's quite a difficult one for them to get around. And then there's a lot of skepticism around the technology. They're concerned about putting their cards, if they've got a card, into a website, because they don't know what's going to happen to their money. They're scared that their money is going to be drained out of their account. They've got so little of it, they're trying to hang on to it, so it becomes a real problem. And so there's a lot of skepticism around there. And of course, that creates a problem. Then infrastructure. Oh, don't get me started on infrastructure. South Africa, for example, at the moment has got anything between 6 and 10 hours a day where there's no electricity. Now imagine trying to run a business where for 6 to 10 hours of the day you don't have power. I mean, it's just insane. I don't know how you run a business like that. It's really, really difficult. People are putting in generators and putting on solar roofs and all of that kind of stuff, but it is quite a difficult problem to overcome. Shortage of skilled labor, real challenge. We've got a lot of labor, but not a lot of skilled labor. Courier costs can be exorbitant, and there's a lot of resistance to the cost of courier. When the products are quite low priced and the courier costs are too high, people become resistant. Now, there are some wonderful innovative solutions around getting your product to your customer. There are companies that run pickup points throughout South Africa where you can have the product delivered within a kilometer of your house and then walk to collect it from that place. It's safe, it's secure. These places are all well vetted, and the company guarantees that the product will be there. So there's those kind of collection points. And then people have runners. 10 people will band together, they'll buy X amount of product, they'll give the money to a single person who will then literally run to the warehouse, pick up the product and bring it back. So there are some innovative, unusual solutions that if you are coming from a first world background that you'll not be used to. Getting product into the country can be a problem. There's all sorts of rules, and there's all sorts of authorities looking to dip their hand into your pocket, let me call it like that. So you got to be very careful that you cross your T's, dot your I's. You must give nobody any reason to seize your product or stop your product at the border. There must be no possible reason for them to do that, because if they can, they're going to stop it. And then they're going to want some sort of compensation for letting it go. Now, that doesn't happen everywhere, but it happens often enough for it to become a legitimate concern. And so the idea would be, if you are bringing product into Africa, make sure that you've got all of the laws sorted out. You know exactly how things are working. All your paperwork is 100% in order, so you don't get stopped at the border. And then there's all sorts of taxes and duties that you might not be aware of. So you need to get your head around that. For example, in South Africa, you've got a thing called ad valorem tax. If the government deems that your product is a luxury good, then they slap an ad valorem tax on. Now, what an ad valorem tax is that if, let's say you sell your product for 200 rands, but a distributor buys the product at a 50% discount, so they get it for 100 rands. The ad valorem tax is billed, let's say it's 15%. I can't remember what it is. Let's say it's 15 or 20%. It's not billed on the amount of money you received. It's billed on the amount of money that you say you're going to retail it for. So it's billed on the full 200 rands. You only received 100 rands, but they bill you on the full 200 rands. So there's those kind of things that you've got to just watch out for, just be aware of, and then make sure that you're actually in a position to account for it within the payment structure, within your commissions and within your profit structures. Paying commissions, well, that's another one. If you're in Central Africa, you can pay the commissions via M-Pesa, so you can pay it in airtime, not a problem. Places like South Africa, you can issue people with bank accounts, so you can get them into a bank, connect them with a bank and help them get an account. Say to them, look, you need a bank account. There are banks which will help them, and then you pay it into the card. So there are challenges related to getting your money out to people that need to be addressed. Fraud is a huge one. You need to watch your people. You know, when I work in Europe, it's not something that is on top of everybody's mind. You know, yes, we have to have security and we're checking everybody, we're keeping everybody safe. But in Africa, there seems to be a penchant for trying to defraud the company. We've had a slew of these, but most recent one of our clients had a staff member who was processing orders in one of the people's names there, in one of the staff members' names. They must have found their password or something, got into the system, was processing large orders in this person's name, then going in, logging in as the accountant, marking the order as paid, even though no money had come in. The product was being collected by an end user, and there was about 10 of them involved in this. The end user would then go out, sell the product, and split the money with a staff member. And this went on for months. Now, easy to miss, because if you've got 1,000 orders a day coming in, it's difficult to track where everything's happening. Eventually they found out, because suddenly there's millions of rands missing out of the bank account. It came to the surface, and of course they'd been defrauded. They tracked it down to who the staff member was. They caught them, and of course there was a jail sentence at the end of that. But the issue is that you've got to watch for that, and you've got to make sure your processes and your systems are absolutely watertight, because you can get yourself into a bit of trouble on that. And then, of course, now that you've made all of this money in the country, you need to get that money out. Now, you want to repatriate that cash to the States or to wherever you are. And this is not easy. So the countries love to get the money in, but they do not want to let the money out. So you've got to make sure that you've worked through all the exchange controls, that you understand exactly how you get your money out before you get started. And I would recommend getting in touch with a good auditing company that understands doing business with foreign companies well, so that you've got mechanisms in place to repatriate your cash and on the profits that you make going forward. So I know this painted quite a bleak picture. There's a lot of things to deal with when you're working in Africa, but the beauty is that it's a ripe market. It's where the States was 50, 60 years ago. It's where Europe was 50, 60 years ago. You know, when people were hungry for opportunity, when Amway and Avon and all of these companies were experiencing the massive booms, that's where Africa is at the moment. It's an emerging middle class. There's wealth being created, and there are people who are willing to do the business to tap into that wealth. So if you're interested in doing business in Africa and you'd like to start an MLM business, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you and see how we can help you and put you in touch with the people who can help you if I can't. So I'd love to hear from you. You can find me on LinkedIn, Richard Sletcher on LinkedIn, or the MLM for CEOs LinkedIn account. And of course, my email address will be in the bottom of this podcast. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, do all of those good things, you know, the like and the bell and the subscribe. Really appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next podcast.